Hello everyone, and welcome to Canada Energy Regulator's Sprint Demo. My name is Malik Jamani, and I'm the Product Management Fellow. My teammates are Jillian and Ian, and we are excited to show you the solution that we have come up for our Sprint Challenge. A little bit about CER. Canada Energy Regulator is the organization that helps keep energy moving safely across the country. It also oversees companies operating oil and gas pipelines and electrical power lines that cross a national, provincial, or territorial border. It also helps people raise concerns about certain projects that might be affecting them. So, to start the challenge, let's talk about Martha. Martha is a rural landowner in Cold Lake, Alberta. One day she receives a package in her mail that contains a letter from Enbridge Gas Pipelines, and the letter says that they wanted to lay down a pipeline that will pass through her land. The package also has a pamphlet from CER that says if she has any concerns, she can raise those with CER. Martha wanted to express her concerns about the project because she has heard some stories about how those pipelines have, in some cases, ruined the land, and also in some very rare cases, how the companies have taken over the ownership of the land. So she is very concerned about this, and she wanted to raise those with CER. According to our sprint brief, she was facing some troubles using the online document submission service, or called e-filing service. So based on this scenario, we learned that Martha could be going through anxiety, stress, and also she could be unsure of what the next steps are for her. To understand better about Martha and people going through similar situation, we decided to work on an empathy diagram. This is a diagram where we put all our thoughts here, and this really helped us understand what Martha and people in similar situations would be thinking and feeling after receiving the package. Also hearing from other people what they could be saying and doing after receiving the package, and also what they could be seeing online or in the media around them. This empathy mapping diagram really helped us understand what Martha would be going through. Based on that, we decided to retrace Martha's steps and understand the problem firsthand. So we decided to create a similar scenario for ourselves and assume that we received the package, we reviewed the content, and we read the pamphlet that is available online. We then researched the CER website and found the e-filing portal. Once we found out the portal, we filled out the form and attached the necessary document. Now, when we attach, on the e-filing portal start page, we found out that there are two ways to attach the document. One is to fill out the template and attach the template, and the other is to just write the letter and attach that cover letter. Once our documents were attached, we proceeded to submit the application. We did not submit the application though, but according to the sprint brief, we learned that Martha could not edit her submitted application, and also she was waiting for the next steps. Since we had only 3 days for this sprint challenge, we decided to tackle one part of the problem that had the most impact. Based on that, we decided to work on improving the e-filing system. So here's our problem statement. How might we create a better e-filing service for Martha to submit her concerns to the CER in an efficient manner so that she gets a positive experience and feels empowered? We made sure to include human emotions like positive experience and feeling empowered, because a solution is nothing if it's not human-centric. So this is the problem statement that we decided to work on. And as a solution, we decided to improve the language of the e-filing system, clarify and simplify the process of the system, and also reduce redundancies in the form. During our process, we used multiple tools such as Slack, Miro for collaboration, and obviously Google Meet for our meetings. To talk more about the process, I will invite Ian.
Thank you, Malik. So I'm going to talk about the process that we used during our sprint. As a rough overview, we started out by trying to understand the problem that the user was facing, and then the user herself, as well as her user journey, which means the process that she went through trying to accomplish her goal of expressing her concerns to the CER. So after we had a good understanding of the problem, we went on to come up with multiple low-fidelity solutions to the problem. So low-fidelity solutions here mean kind of quick and dirty ideas for what the solution could look like. So this was things like hand-drawn sketches of what the website screens could be, with the goal of trying to get as many ideas out there as quickly as possible. So after that, we looked at all of these low-fidelity ideas and tried to come up with which ones would be worth prototyping into higher fidelity solutions. Higher fidelity meaning looking more like what you'd see on an actual website. So we came up with some designs for these, and then after that we progressively tried to improve the designs. And ideally we would do some user testing on these designs to make sure that our assumptions about what would work for the user are correct, although we did not have time to do user testing on our designs in this sprint. So as I mentioned before, we started it by trying to understand the problem and user. So this looked like initially going through the e-filing process ourselves and looking at what problems and confusions we encountered, as well as using online collaboration tools to kind of synthesize all of the understanding that we were gaining. It also looked like doing exercises to try and better put ourselves into Martha's shoes, think about what her goals, frustrations, skills, expectations are. And our UX designer, Jillian, came up with this wonderful storyboard of the user's experience, which really helps us to empathize with her and understand what she might be feeling at each point in the process that she goes through. So now, while we didn't have access to real rural landowners who are having pipelines proposed through their land, we conducted some usability tests with our co-fellows. So we asked them to put themselves into Martha's shoes and imagine that they were rural landowners and they received a package in the mail. So we took them from the pamphlet and we asked them to try to find out how to submit their concerns on the CER website through the e-filing system, but we didn't tell them about the e-filing system. And so then we recorded kind of the steps they took and what confusions and difficulties they had. So some themes that we gained from this were that it was hard to find the e-filing page. Like the users wanted kind of somewhere they could click to easily get there without having to dig around in the site for a long time. And also it felt like the site wasn't really designed for normal people. It was designed more for big companies with lawyers. So based on our understanding, we kind of had some key insights of key areas that we could work on, and then based on these came up with ideas for how to make the experience better with these insights in mind. So to start off, users were having trouble using and understanding the e-filing system. So some ideas we had based on this were to make the help link in the e-filing system more visible, to make the information clearer, to allow users to submit different file formats, and additional smaller UI enhancements. Now, even before they started to use the e-filing system, we found that users were having trouble finding the e-filing page in the first place. So to address this, we thought of adding a link on the home page of the CER's website that would be easily identifiable to first-time users. Additionally, many users in Martha's position only need to upload a few paragraphs to make their concerns heard, which is something we learned in a follow-up meeting with our CER partner, Darcy. So to address this, we came up with the idea of allowing users to type their submissions directly into the form instead of having to create a PDF using outside software, which might be difficult for some less technically inclined users. Finally, we learned that the user's experience begins when they receive the package and pamphlet in the mail, not just when they get to the website. Now, this insight is beyond the scope of this sprint, but is something that is worth considering and keeping in mind in the future. So, after we had some insights, we came up with multiple low-fidelity solutions, which took the form of hand-drawn sketches as well as kind of quick and dirty digital ideas. And then we took these and then we voted on them to think of which ones were most worth turning into higher fidelity designs. And with that, I'll pass things off to Jillian.
Now I'll walk through the solutions that my team and I came up with over the last 3 days. So on the current CER website, when we're doing our usability testing sessions, both our users had a hard time finding where the e-filing system was. So under Services and Information, we created a link that takes the users directly to the e-filing system. Once the user gets to the e-filing system, they're met with a long paragraph of information. Right now, optimal reading length is between 45 to 75 characters long. Unfortunately, the current system doesn't meet that requirement, and so we decided to update that for optimal reading length. Again, same thing goes with the privacy agreement. The length of it is too long, and so we shortened the length. Within contact information, there wasn't any big changes to it, just the way the information is ordered. Once the user gets to the submission information, one thing that wasn't very clear during our user testing session, and even to Martha, was what title to put. What does it mean? So in our designs, we optimized the language for the average user. We put application information instead of submission information, and the name of your application instead of title. One of the bigger changes we made to our designs was the project information section. One of the big challenges Martha had was finding the name of the project, the energy project. And so she put not listed and had to do some guessing to figure out what was the company name that it fell under. We want to remove the guesswork, so we created a map with a search bar that allows Martha to search the closest energy project near her. Once you get to the electronic document submission, Martha could only submit a PDF format. At the time, she only had a Word document, and she only needed to type in a few paragraphs. So we thought, on top of having the ability to attach a document, why can't Martha also just copy or paste all the text in, or even type it out? Wouldn't that be simpler? And so because of that, we decided to include the ability to type it out. And once Martha types it out, she could see the summary of all the documents that she attached. Afterwards, she will get to the paper documents. Within paper documents, this wasn't the most clear either. One thing we learned during our research process was that paper documents usually occurs when somebody tries to submit something that is over the maximum file length within electronic documents. And so we wanted to clarify the language by having the text or title say, optional documents you will send by mail. Similar goes with courtesy copies. We didn't really understand what courtesy copies mean. And so again, we just wanted to clarify the language a little bit more in our designs. Finally, Martha decided to submit her application. When she did, she found out that her document was entitled correctly, but she could no longer edit her document. And that might lead to a painful experience of trying to email somebody from the CER to make an update to it. So we wanted to make sure it's very clear in our designs that she should be reviewing and submitting her documents beforehand. And we wanted to make the information very clear and legible so Martha can go in and edit at any time. Now, during our process, our developer Ian decided to create an HTML mockup. And so this is just one example of what it might look like in conjunction to the Canada Energy Regulator website. And for next steps, ideally we want to do some more user testing with our prototype. We came up with a few different solutions, and the best way to really understand which solution might work best is by testing it out. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we weren't able to do that. Another thing we would consider adding is having an application participant and other selector section within the e-filing system. The reason being is that we want to tailor our information to our specific users accordingly. Finally, some other things we might want to consider is improvements for pamphlets and maybe even a way to standardize information packages that companies send out. And finally, some things that we learned. One of the major things actually we took away was that the process and experience starts from when Martha receives the information package, not when she starts at the e-filing system. And while she didn't have problem finding the e-filing system according to our brief, our users had a lot of a hard time finding it. And because of that, sometimes the confusion and lack of clarity earlier on impacts the main experience. Thank you so much for your time. Are there any questions?